everybody. Second show in under 12 hours, I think, by my clock. No, like 15 hours roughly. But we are here. It's Saturday morning. It is the first of many Saturday morning shows I'll be doing now that the season is about to start. I like doing these Saturday morning shows because it's kind of get you ready for college football Saturday. So we have a very special guest who hasn't been on with us in a while. Love having him on. Love talking some football with him. He always has great insight. Our boy, Vish.
What's up, John? How's it going?
I'm good, brother. How you been, man?
Good. Excited for the season.
Yeah, it's 4 weeks now? A little over 4 weeks?
A little under, because it's a Friday. The first game's on Friday, so it's
that's right.
4 weeks from yesterday.
Correct, man. It is like right there. Well, very important. Got my Cafecito ready to go because it is Saturday morning. So cheers, family. Cafecito Nation.
Yeah. I've been on apple juice. We did like a taste testing on our basketball show, buckets of apple juice, and I've just got so much apple juice in this.
Really?
Yes, there's a whole Melissa, one of our co-hosts, is always drinking what looks like beer, but is actually apple juice.
Interesting.
So we went through all the brands, and now I just got way too much apple juice, so I'm just working through it now.
I'll have to watch that episode. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Touche, how's it going, my brother? So yeah, man, we're, as you said, we are 27 days from Canes football.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So first of all, because people are kind of split on this, all these non-Saturday games we have early in the year. You have the kickoff against Miami of Ohio on a Friday night. You got Bethune-Cookman on a Thursday night, which is very odd. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Right.
What do you think about? I'll give you my thoughts, but what do you think about that opening game being on a Friday night?
It is not ideal, especially that weekend. That is Labor Day weekend. It's a good weekend to travel if you want to get out to a game. If you're not someone like me who doesn't live in Miami anymore. And yeah, I'm having to fly in Thursday, take Friday off work, that sort of thing. It does. I will say with that game, it gives us an extra day to prepare for A&M. So that one's pretty good. I'm pretty sure they put that Bethune-Cookman game on Thursday when Ed Reed was briefly their coach. I think they were going to hype it because that game's on TV now.
Oh,
it's a Thursday. It's a Thursday game. And so I think they're going to put that on TV and kind of hype it up as Ed Reed against his alma mater. And then he was their coach for about 10 minutes. So, but I think it was in that window that they announced that. It's Bethune-Cookman. It stinks for the fans really more than anything else. I don't think it's 5 days after A&M, but it's Bethune-Cookman, so it shouldn't be an issue. And it gives you 9 days to prepare for Temple, which also is not necessary. So it's kind of a non-thing. My biggest concern with the schedule is just four out of conference, like you said, non-conference games on weird schedules. Only 2 of those games are on Saturday. And then from there, bye week and then 8 ACC games in a row is rough. So that's kind of like, it's like a soft opening. Yeah. And then just get hit by it after that. So that's my bigger concern with the schedule. It's just a weird.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we always get the shaft on the bye week. It's always super early, right. I feel like. So I'm not surprised there. But I love the Friday night opener. I mean, it's a little easier for me. I live in Miami because it takes me back. I mean, it takes me back to high school. Friday night lights. That was always fun. And then that 2013 opener, I don't know if you remember, against FAU.
Right. Yeah.
That game, I thought the crowd was electric for that game. It being on a Friday night, I thought helped a little bit because if it was a Saturday noon kickoff. You know how insultingly hot it is in early September in Miami. Last year, opening kickoff against Bethune-Cookman, I thought the heat alone cut into the crowd by a good 10 to 15,000 people because it was just it was horrible. It was so bad. But I think making it a night game, more attention is on it. I don't know. I like it. I think it's better for the fans so you're not roasting out there the next day at noon. You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion on it.
What about the Bethune on Thursday?
Bethune on Thursday is a little weird, but you brought up a good point with Ed Reed. I'm sure that's what it was. It's very odd because
I wish we had a better opponent the game after, because the benefit to doing that is you get the extra time to prep.
Right. Yeah, it's Temple. I mean, we say that now, but I hope we smash Temple, and we should. But
this came up on our 6th Red Cage show this week when we were talking about the beginning of the season, and I went full screen and just yelled into the camera that we're not losing to Miami, Ohio, Bethune-Cookman, or Temple. Like, I know we lost to Middle Tennessee last year, but that's not going to become a regular occurrence.
I 1,000% agree. No, I'm with you. I'm with you there. I will be shocked if we lose any one of those games. I know people are like, well, we lost to Middle Tennessee last year. Look, while it wouldn't surprise me if we come out slow and struggle, because that's just been our MO for years, this team, as much as we flip the roster and as good as Mario Cristobal's been in his career off of not just bye weeks, but when he's had extra time to prepare, I don't see any of those games being close, and I don't expect them to be close.
Yeah, and then the Middle Tennessee game was just a weird one. We came out, turned it over a bunch of times, just weren't in it mentally, and then it just got away. I mean, it's what it is. It was coming off that A&M game where we, if you go back and look at that game, dominated but couldn't score, and I think we were just coming in probably a little bit full of ourselves because we actually played well against a team that was supposed to be good. Turns out they stunk too. We didn't know it at the time, so like, man, we went on the road and really pushed this SEC power around.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were a little full of ourselves. We didn't come out focused, and that was like an otherworldly. If you look at the rest of Middle Tennessee's, we got their like off the charts A game because they don't play that way ever, except for in that game. So
no,
even one of those days.
Yeah, I think I remember even in their conference and against their equal caliber opponents, they're not very good either.
Oh, yeah, no, they proceed to embarrass us further by losing a bunch of conference games to really awful teams. So it was just one of those days. It's not really a repeatable thing I'm worried about.
I will be absolutely shocked if that happens again. But
so the apple juice question, I'm drinking the Simply Apple. This was definitely my top choice. Matt, one of my co-hosts, he went with Martinelli's. And then Melissa swears by Mott's, which was one of the ones I taste tested. This is the stuff. You got to get this. Get the pure press Simply Apple, and whatever you do, though, whatever your choice is, do not, under any circumstances, buy the Tropicana. That stuff is disgusting. Do not buy the Tropicana. They're good on the OJ, not on the apple juice.
I totally agree. So speaking of Simply Apple, I'm actually drinking a little Simply Orange. Because I went to, again, insanely hot outside. I went to play a little basketball this morning, so to rehydrate, sometimes I mix a little orange juice with some ice cold water. I got that in here. So I'm still rehydrating, even though I'm having some cafecito. All right. So very important question here. I've been hearing some things about Tyler Harrell. I know he limped off the field yesterday. And then I've heard more positive things, like stuff, nothing official, but stuff here and there from people like on the Discord and on Twitter that, it was something minor. Have you heard anything different about Tyler Harrell?
I haven't. I think we all heard he limped off. These are all, especially this early in practice, they're not going to push anything. So, if they feel something a little bit, they're just like, get off the field. We're not stressing it. So I'm not worried about it yet. I think limped off is better than carted off. So I'm not really worried about him being ready 4 weeks from now.
Okay. So I think you and I are in agreement that it's most likely it's something not that serious, that they're just being precautious or cautious, excuse me. So I'm not too worried about him. And I know I heard a little bit about Elijah Arroyo, that they kind of held him back a little bit in practice number 3. But Coach Cristobal came out and said, he can pretty much do everything. We're just limiting the amount of snaps he's doing it at. So I'm not too worried about Elijah Arroyo either. I'm just hoping that the injury bug doesn't get us again. Because, I don't know if you're aware of this, but, pretty much the entire starting lineup on offense at one point or another was out and missed extended time.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this as well, that, last year at this time, we're like running backs our defense position. By the middle of the season, we were giving carries to a walk-on.
Mm-hmm.
so the injuries can come at you fast, and that definitely played a big role last year. If you think about the progression, or I guess regression, of the offense, if you recall, for the first half of the year when Van Dijk was healthy, and he was never healthy after he got injured against Duke, we played him a couple of like forced him out onto the field a few times, but he was never healthy. The whole problem at the beginning of the year was we're moving up and down the field, but we cannot score. It's hard to remember back to that because by the end of the year we couldn't move the ball at all. But at the beginning of the year it was Van Dijk's getting us between the 20s. We're moving up and down the field. We just can't punch the ball in. Then he got hurt, and then it turned into we can't move the ball at all. And that's what injuries can do to you, right? We went from trying to solve the problem of how do we get those last 10 yards to we can't get a first down. We can get the first 10 yards. And health, you can't really coach health. A lot of it's just, luck of the draw there. And so and I think the injuries were bad last year too. Everything went wrong last year pretty much.
I think everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It just all totally unraveled. But speaking of offense and moving the ball, the quarterback position, we're obviously, hearing good things about TVD. He looks solid out there from all accounts. Jakari looks improved. He had a great spring, not a great spring game, but let's be honest, they were like two long snappers blocking for him. It was pretty thin during the spring game. And then Emory Williams, who I don't know if you were in the camp of, Emory's probably like 3 or 4 years away, or if you were in the camp like me that no, I think this dude's a diamond in the rough. I think he's going to be game ready much sooner than people think. So what were your thoughts when you heard that, Emory's looking pretty good, looking like he's already outperforming his 3-star rating?
Yeah, no, I was more on your side of the fence, but I had a cheat sheet named Larry Bluestein who was like, no, this kid's the real deal. He saw him at camp, and he's like, I can't believe more people aren't on this kid. This is, a year or two ago. And so we we kind of go by whatever Blue says. So we were all on the side of like, okay, Blue says this guy's got it, he's got it. So not really that surprised that he's showing out. I think we got a good one there. Like you said, he's not a 3-star, and if they redid the stars now, he wouldn't be. So I think that's a good sign for the future. We are a little light depth wise at quarterback. We need TVD to stay healthy. I think this year is obvious. And stating the obvious, but Emory's an exciting prospect, and it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out with him and Jakari. More so next year, than this year in terms of how that pecking order comes in after TVD is gone.
I'm a little surprised we did not go after a grad transfer to try to add a little bit more depth. Is it still? I guess it's not still possible that they do that this late.
I don't think it would make sense to do that this year. And I think the reason they didn't do that, well, it's two things. One is if you're a grad transfer, this is TVD's team. The only way you're going to get significant action is if he gets hurt. So there's other options, even at maybe a lower conference tier, where you're going to play, right? Because that's your 1 year to play. So I think you're already kind of limiting your market. But then I know the spring game didn't go the best for him, but I think the coaches generally, if they need to, trust Jakari to come in there and play. It'll be a different offense. They'll have to limit some of the throwing, but obviously he's a completely different kind of athlete. So it would be a little bit different playbook, but I think they can get by, a game or two if they have to with him playing, which is what you would ask the grad transfer to do. So I think it was more confidence in Jakari versus are they really going to get someone they'd rather have on the field if TVD is injured than him? Probably not.
Yeah. And let's be honest, 99% of teams are kind of screwed if their starting quarterback gets hurt.
Right, exactly.
So it's kind of really, I can name maybe a couple teams that are we lose our starting QB, but you got a 5-star there. So, hey, let's see what happens.
But even then, that 5-star is probably not played a lot. You never know, they get thrown out there in the first game. A lot of it depends on circumstance. If you're playing, Bethune-Cookman and they get to take their first snaps there, that's very different than you're playing Clemson. So it's a lot of that even as it's a chance. But Jakari played a significant amount last year. He's got some snaps under his belt. So I think they viewed him as the best emergency option if TVD gets injured.
You're probably right. He probably is. So, little thin at QB. I would have liked another guy, but hey, you got to keep TVD healthy regardless. I agree with you. Moving over to the offensive line. This has been an issue not just last year, but for the better part of 2 decades, really. I mean, outside of that Feliciano, Brandon Linder offensive line we had for a couple of years, I mean, this offensive line at has been mediocre to bad. And I feel like this season, they're not going to be back to being elite, obviously, in 1 year, but I think the revamping they did, they're going to turn the corner at the very least. The one thing, though, is, I'm good with Jalen Rivers at left tackle if that's what needs to happen. You could be starting a true freshman, Francis Mauigoa. How do you feel about that if that's what ends up happening?
I mean, I'm okay with it. I'd also like to hear Matt McCoy get a shot there. I think again, we debated this on our show. Like, I think the question one is what's going on with Zion Nelson? Mm-hmm. He has not now played in more than a year. He's supposed to be, probably the best offensive lineman we have. So if he can, I mean, again, I have no information that anyone else doesn't have, but if he can slot in there, then Jalen Rivers can play right tackle, and then, you're not playing a freshman. But I think, assuming he's still not going to be able to play, which is probably a fair assumption at this point, I think it is going to be Mauigoa, or it's going to be McCoy, and then the other ones it's going to be Rivers. To me, Rivers is either at left tackle or right tackle. And then the other one's at the other, and then you got Cooper. But then I think the big exciting thing for us is the other two spots are Javion Cohen and Matt Lee, which are huge upgrades over what we had last year. So now you're kind of like, you can run off left guard now and pick up 5 yards pretty regularly, which we struggled, again, in the red zone, struggled in short yards a ton, not just last year, as you said, for several years at this point. So that kind of, those two guys next to each other on the line is going to be an exciting thing to watch.
I think people underestimate how important that center position is. To me, it's just as important as the blind side, because at center, if you don't have a good, reliable guy that's going to get consistent push and is going to get guys lined up right and help the quarterback read the defense, I mean, really I'm trying to remember, maybe when Brandon Linder was here, or Shane McDermott, is when we had like a solid one. I can't remember beyond.
Yeah, and like you said, a leader on that line. It feels like we've been missing that leader. And they're supposed to, the left tackle gets the attention. The center's the leader of the line. They're calling out the blocking schemes. They're the ones that are getting everyone going. They're the ones that have the quarterback relationship. And if you don't have that, it really hinders what you can do. And so, I mean, I think it speaks volumes that they sent him to ACC Media Days as a transfer in terms of where they feel he is from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah. And also just the sheer size across the O-line, because it's like 6'5", 6'6", 6'5", like all the way through, aside from Matt Lee, but all the way through it's like 6'5" and above, and like 330 and above.
Right.
Another thing I haven't seen on this line for a very long time, I feel like it's been a lot of 6'2", 6'3" guys, a little undersized, playing tackle. Not the case anymore.
Yeah, and a part of that's also, I mean, that's more suited. Be interesting to see what Shannon Dawson does offensively here, scheme-wise, because the offensive line, like you said, now we got some big dudes there, definitely suited to pushing people around and mauling them. When Lashley was the offensive coordinator, that was not what we were trying to do. We were definitely get the ball out quick, spread the field around, that kind of thing. So we got an offensive line set up to do one thing. Shannon Dawson's background's another thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that gels. If we get the right mix there, the thing could really take off, though.
No, that's because that's the perfect hybrid, the best of two worlds.
Right.
The power running game and the quick, getting the ball out quick, spread offense kind of thing. Yeah, no, I hope that's the only thing that can hold them back this year, is if that doesn't gel right away. Little off-topic question. Peanut says, where do you think Miami ends up with all this realignment? I'm thinking Big Ten.
I think eventually Big Ten, but I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. I think one of the things that's kind of missed here is the ACC is still a more lucrative and better viewed conference than the Big 12. The Big 12 was supposed to die and didn't, so everyone's like, wow, they survived. I mean, you look at any of the teams they've added, they would be mid-tier or worse in the ACC. Like, these are not, they're not the Big Ten, like, going in and we're going to take UCLA and USC. That's what the Big Ten did, right? They're like, we're going to go take your best teams. SEC goes and takes Oklahoma and Texas. Like if you look at where the Big 12 was 10 years ago to now, they're way worse. They used to have Nebraska, Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. Now they've got UCF. No offense to our friends in Orlando, but come on, like you lost Texas and got UCF. Like that's not what the ACC is trying to do. So the ACC is in a weird position where they still have elite programs because the Big 12 actually does not. They've lost all their top end programs. So they're kind of mid-tier down. So their problem they're trying to solve is just, hey, we're going to give you a platform, you mid-tier programs. That's much bigger than what you've got. So it's an easy sell. For the ACC, they still have Florida State, Clemson, Miami. North Carolina's a huge brand. Duke's a huge brand in basketball. They have these big-time programs, and they don't have SEC Big Ten money, and that's what those programs want. They're not looking to like survive or to get a little bit more change because they already get more money in the Big 12. They want SEC money. They want Big Ten money, and it's hard to see the ACC getting there. Like, what could they possibly do? Like, adding Arizona wasn't going to do it. Like there's no one. I mean, there's the unicorn of Notre Dame, right? That's the thing that could do it. If you bring them into the fold, rework that TV contract, you can get up there in the Big Ten, SEC range. But so the ACC's like got a completely different challenge here in that they need to somehow get to that 1 tier, right? They're already on the 2 tier. You got the SEC and Big Ten at the top. Then the ACC, then the Big 12. Obviously, the Pac-12 is now dead. But they're trying to get up to that 1 tier. There's not really a path for them to do that. But then I think everyone's aware they've got these schools locked into this airtight grant of rights thing where they can't really leave. Like, I know FSU is doing a lot of posturing, and maybe they find a way out. But if there was an easy way out, they would have left. They clearly don't want to be in the ACC anymore. But there's something holding them back, and it's not loyalty to the conference. It's because they don't think there's an easy way to break their contract. And so I think eventually it'll shake out, but it's going to be a tough one, especially since for Miami, FSU, Clemson, North Carolina, maybe Virginia and a few other schools, you have options to probably go to the SEC or the Big Ten and get that huge payday. For the rest of the conference, when that happens, they're going to lose a ton of money over where they are now. Like FSU, Miami, Clemson, etc., they're losing money right now. They're undervalued. The rest of the conference is overvalued. So they're not going to go on board with let's implode this thing because they're not getting that invite. They're going to go to a worse conference and get less money. So it's a tough situation where majority of the conference needs this. For the majority of the conference, these ACC checks that everyone's making fun of is the best money they're ever going to see. And so they're not going to agree to get out of that. And then for the top end, they're undervalued. They're getting significantly less money than they would. So it's kind of almost an impasse. I have no idea how it gets worked out.
I keep thinking, like, everybody talks about the airtight grant of rights thing, and it's like, yeah, why did we sign that? Like, sounds like a horrible idea now, but I don't know.
I think the horrible idea was the length of the contract. Because all conferences actually have this grant of rights. The reason the Pac-12 schools were able to leave is their contract's up. Though the contract was out, and so that's what the Pac-12 was trying to negotiate to get them to re-sign. The Big 12 has grant of rights too. Just as an example, Texas and Oklahoma, to get out of 1 year of that, paid $50 million each. That was to get out of 1 year. Because it ran through 2025. They want to start paying in 2024. So they paid $50 million to get 1 year out of that. There's 12 years left on the ACC deal.
Yeah, because it's still 2036, right?
Yes.
And that was the original, like when we did,
and so the ACC did that after Maryland left. But yeah, why you would sign something that long? That's really where the challenge is, because it wasn't that long. Then you would start negotiating this. I think eventually the dam will break on this, but
I do too.
If there was a way to get out of it easily, it would have been done.
Yeah. No, I feel like Miami is Big Ten bound eventually.
I agree. I think it makes more sense for them, and the Big Ten has been kind of willing to clearly go cross country and jump over a bunch of states to grab a school. Miami fits better with the Big Ten, and I would expect North Carolina as well to be a Big Ten target. Virginia, those are more Big Ten-ish schools. I think Clemson, FSU feel like SEC schools.
Yeah.
So you kind of there's different cultures there, and you can kind of see where the different schools would fit.
Yeah. No, we're a private school. We're an academically strong school, so it's I could see our fit with the Big Ten. I would love to see rivalries renewed with Penn State and teams like that. I can't help but think, man, can you imagine if Miami joined the ACC and Miami and FSU both remained the dominant powers that they were throughout? This wouldn't even be an issue. I don't know. It's a moot point, right now. But I can't help but think if Miami remained Miami, we might not even be having this discussion.
Well, I think the ACC's. I think where our school lays some of the blame on the current TV contract is, frankly, our performance from joining the ACC up to the point they signed this TV contract did not lend itself. If we were winning championships at that point, the ACC probably would have gotten a lot more money in that contract than they did. Back when you said, back when FSU and Miami kind of ruled the world, no one cared about the SEC outside of the Southeast, and they kind of grew into this monster. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is the void Miami left. So it's kind of all interrelated.
Yeah. But now back to the team itself. Peanut has a comment here, and I'm glad he brought this up because I know people bring up the strength and conditioning coach when it comes to injuries. And he says, yes, the fact that he limped off the field is good. Talking about Tyler Harrell. I'll tell you one thing. If we have a lot of injuries again this year, the strength and conditioning coach needs to be fired. He had a lot of injuries at Oregon too. When a team just goes through a rash of injuries, I mean, do you typically attribute that to strength and conditioning, or is that just bad luck sometimes?
It can be both. I'm not going to pretend I know what we're doing to make a judgment on Feld at all. But so I will not be calling for him to be fired because I have no idea what he's doing out there. But it's certainly the case that the strength and conditioning coach could cause injuries. I think more so in pro sports, you'll see, the strength and conditioning coaches get fired sometimes for injuries. So they'll bring in, because in pro sports you don't have limits on your coaches, they'll bring in, let's get some outside consultants in here to see if we're causing it. And sometimes they make some adjustments that way. But I mean, we're 1 year into this thing, so it seems a little reactionary. But again, I don't know what we're doing, and that would cause that. The other thing is, especially last year, you're going through a transition, right? You have a new coach coming in. They're used to working out one way. Your body's conditioned to one thing, and then you get another thing. You're going to pick up injuries doing that. So I think if it continues over a course of multiple years, you might want to look at that. But you would expect with the new strength and conditioning program to get a lot of injuries. Their bodies just aren't used to that.
That's a good point. And also just a more grueling regimen in general. Right. I mean, we heard kind of the country club lax style that was the previous regime to this, which is polar opposite. Yeah, I'm not surprised a lot of guys got nicked up. Little hot take here from 850 Kane. I'm not totally I don't know about All-American, but I think he's going to perform. Kiko Mauigoa, our new middle linebacker.
Yep.
I could totally see him being a second team, or maybe even probably a second team All-ACC kind of guy. I don't know about All-American.
I think he's going to get a shot to start, which is something because I think Wes is also going to start, which basically means he's displacing Corey Flagg as our leading tackler last year. So I think that speaks to it right away. Unfortunately, a lot of this, I think it speaks to how good Mesidor and Cam Kinchens were last year, that they got accolades despite the team being as bad as it was. Mm-hmm. If the team is good, a lot of these awards, unfortunately, are not based on individual performance. That team is good. Who's their starting middle linebacker? Oh, okay, well, put him on my All-ACC team or my All-American team. So, if we're bad again, it's going to be hard to win those awards. But overall, I'm excited for him. I think he's, again, we're talking about where we've gotten better. Kiko by himself is where we got better at linebacker. Just straight away, you have him, you're better.
6'3", 230-something pounds. Quick for his size.
Good reaction, too. His reaction time reading the play and diagnosing and getting to the ball carrier is just a step up from what we've had.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I talk about Shaq Quarterman all the time. I'm a Shaq Quarterman fan. Love Shaq. He's playing in the NFL. But where he lacked was that quickness and athleticism that like a Sean Spence had, McCarthy, Denzel Perriman even. He didn't quite have that, which is why he wasn't drafted higher. But I don't know about All-American because I know in our same conference you got Jeremiah Trotter on Clemson, and he's an absolute beast, like potential first rounder. So, but I could totally see Kiko being like maybe like a second team All ACC, that's great.
Yep.
Huge upgrade. And then just that room in general, again, size. Everyone's 6'2", 6'3", long, 220 and above. More experience, even like KJ Cloyd, even a guy like that from Louisville, who I think was like slated to either start or push for starting snaps this year at Louisville. And by all accounts is very, very fast.
Right.
So yeah. So your feelings on the whole linebacker room, would you say that's also been a major upgrade?
Yeah, it's been a major upgrade. And then one of the things we're hearing from multiple players after these post-practice interviews is just how multiple the defense is going to be. A lot of people moving around. And, we haven't mentioned his names yet, but James Williams talked about, playing in the box some as well. So I think that depth is going to be necessary if we're going to, do a lot of interesting things formationally, move people around. So it's good that we definitely upgraded the linebacker position. We have a lot more options there, and we're going to need it. And, I mentioned him earlier, but the fact that your leading tackler is now probably not starting, you can get into a short yard situation and bring Corey Flagg in there. Like that's a very good thing to have in your hip pocket there. So just a lot of depth. Again, that's always the goal, right? You want to upgrade the talent so your starters either push to get better or get pushed into backup positions. I think we've done that at this position.
Yeah. Do you see any? I'm talking the defense in general. Right. Do you see any of these freshmen, maybe like a surprise freshman, come in and push for starting snaps, maybe even become a starter at some point this year?
I mean, the one that shined out in the spring game obviously is Ruben Bain. I don't know about starter, but I can't imagine he's not on the field in passing situations to go hit the quarterback, basically. And and so I think he'll probably start in a role of, maybe situational third and medium, third and long, and then just, I think, continue to get more snaps as the year goes on. So he could potentially be starting by the end of the year. But I think probably to start with, it'll be definitely Mesidor, and I think probably still Harvey on the other side. But I think the Ruben Bain train is coming down the tracks here.
Oh, 1,000%. I think the only reason I don't have him as a starter by like week 5 or 6 is because you still got Nigel Kelly back there.
Right.
And Chance Williams, and you're actually pretty deep at defensive end.
Right.
It's, not bad. You got 2 or 3 layers there on each side. But one guy that, aside from Ruben, the obvious one being Ruben Bain, another guy that people are raving about is Joshua Horton. At D tackle, freak athlete, can dunk a basketball as a D tackle. That's not normal. Okay, that's really, really good. And I've heard from people that they cover recruiting that's another one that he's like, I don't know how this kid wasn't a 5-star or at least a very, very, very high 4-star. Because he has all the physical measurables. That's another guy that I could see possibly making an impact. Kind of like I remember back to when Marcus Forston was a freshman.
Yeah, and that's a position where we're going to want to rotate a lot. So he'll get his chances, and if you keep showing out, then you just get more snaps. Because I mean, Leonard Taylor will start. The other position's a little in flux, and there's definitely opportunity for him to get snaps there. Harrison Hunt's kind of a tweener. Could play in, could play tackle. It's a very useful player to have, but there'll definitely be an opportunity for Horton as the season goes on. He'll get his snaps and, what he does with them.
Mm-hmm. There's another guy that I like to get early playing time, Bobby Washington.
Yes.
6'3", 225, got that 4th star in his recruiting rating, like late in the season. So that's, I'm liking that linebacker room, man. It could be really good. Terry says we will go 10-2, book it. I don't know.
I'm not going to book that. I feel like I'm less negative than a lot of our fans, but I'm not sure if I'm going the 10-2 level yet.
No, I mean, that would mean you have to pull off an upset against. Look, you're playing FSU, Clemson, two teams that are clearly better.
Yeah.
Then you got North Carolina and A&M, two teams that I don't think are far and away better. I think they're beatable, but you're talking about, winning 2 of those 4 games. I think that's a long shot.
And you still, I mean, we have if you looked at the ACC, like the voting when they do now there's no division, so it's just 1 to 14. We were 5th. We are playing the 4 teams that were voted, and from us, the other one you didn't mention was NC State. And then we're going A&M out of conference. NC State, North Carolina are on the road. Florida State's on the road. It's not that we can't win those games. It's that to go 10-2, you kind of have to win almost all of them, and you feel like invariably you'll drop them. It's not that in a vacuum. Can we go win at NC State? Of course we can, right? But you're going to win at NC State and at UNC. It's just like, are you going to do all of that? That's where it's a tough one.
Mm-hmm. You know what, though? I feel like the start we get off to is going to mean a lot. If we mess around and beat A&M, which I think is entirely possible, I honestly don't think A&M is that good.
I'm not sure we're not better than them, to be honest. We were better than them last year.
Honestly, when we played them, yes, I thought we were the better team. We just couldn't punch it into the end zone for whatever reason. I have a really good feeling about that game. You win that game, in all likelihood, we're starting 5-0. You start 5-0, get a little confident. You go 5-0 going into that UNC game. All of a sudden you use the momentum to win that one. It could be a totally different season than what people
right. There is an opportunity to really get off to it. That A&M game is a big swing game. If you win that, you have an opportunity to get off to a really strong start record-wise, and then it's kind of like golf. You post a low number and see where it leads you.
Exactly. Hopefully it carries through. Again, you might hit a brick wall with Clemson. Hey, that's fine. A big thing also is, in my opinion, the swing games late in the season when the schedule gets much tougher. After you play Clemson, I think you played Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. I think Virginia's after either Clemson or FSU.
No, I think it's after Clemson. I think it's Clemson, Virginia, then FSU, I think.
Okay. That Virginia game is huge.
You gotta win that.
You gotta win that. You cannot lose that because you're thinking about getting your ass kicked by Clemson or thinking ahead to FSU, which would happen in the past. You would lose that game almost for sure.
Right.
And then you're losing 3 in a row. And then the next game after Clemson, after FSU, I'm trying to remember.
That's NC State.
That's another tough one. It could easily be 4 in a row that you lose. You gotta win. You gotta break that up with a good win against Virginia.
Yeah, and like we said, there's no bye week there. The bye week comes before ACC plays, so you just got to play them out. So, it's a cliche, but one game at a time is going to be critical when you're just look. Let's be real. Like the ACC is not the best conference, but there's not a lot of horrible teams there.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you show them and don't play well, you will lose, and it doesn't really matter which team you're playing. And so it's going to be very important that they take each game individually and focus and put the best game they can out there. Otherwise, you will pick up those random losses like we did last year. But the other thing last year is, we played well once. That Georgia Tech game was pretty much it. Everything else was, even the wins, that game at Virginia, which I unfortunately sat through in the stadium. That was an insult to football. We got the win. We got the win, but that's not something where you're feeling good about yourselves. And then the losses you mentioned, Clemson and Florida State are clearly a step up, but you want to be competitive. Those weren't competitive. Clemson, we didn't get 100 yards in that game, which we watched together at a bar. So that's not what you want to. So also, even in the losses, because we're not going to go undefeated, right? How well are you playing? Are you building that foundation where you're we're getting closer? Next year we're going to take these guys, or are you just not even close? Because we were not competitive in so many games last year, and that's also why it feels so 5-7 is obviously bad. It wasn't a good 5-7 either. Not that there's such a thing, but it was the performance on the field was actually probably worse than the record.
Mm-hmm. I totally agreed. I even in 2007, which was the last time we were 5-7, that was the season we went up and beat FSU with Kirby Freeman.
Right.
I think he had some kind of injury and he willed us to victory on that last drive. So we beat FSU on the road. We have that that really fun Texas A&M home game,
Right.
that Thursday night game that we smacked them around. I actually rewatched that game the other day. Really fun. So even that season, you had bright spots. This last season, there were no bright spots. Like, aside from Jakari's game against Georgia Tech, that was the only one.
But that was the only time you could be like, wow, we played well in that game.
Yeah, we put a good 4-quarter game together.
Yeah, that was the only time, though. Every other game, even at the wins, the 4 other wins, we didn't play well. It was an ugly game. We gutted it out. Because even, remember, Virginia Tech, we played a really good first half. We had that big lead.
And almost blew it.
So you never really felt good about the team. And that, if you come out of the season, regardless of the record saying, we built some things here, the foundation's in place, to me, that's the season goal. It's that, we can now see the next step, because last year you could not.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm remembering the late 90s, coming off that horrible 5-6 season in 97. You go to 9-3 in 98, beating UCLA. You go to, I think we were 9-4 because we played an extra game in 99. Opening against Ohio State, beating them, almost beating Penn State at home, almost being super competitive against FSU on the road. That's what I want to see. I feel like you saw in those late 90s teams, you saw clear progress. We were taking care of business against the bad teams. That's what I want. And I want to see this also that Mitch is bringing up that I mentioned. If we go 5-0 and get blown out, I want to see what this team's made out of. Can we come back and destroy people the next game? Like that Virginia game. Do you come out swinging and beat them 48-0?
Yeah, and it's see what the team's made of. See how much belief they actually have. It's easy to say things in the offseason when you haven't played a game about how you believe in the system, you're excited to play here and all that. What about when you get hit in the mouth like that? Are you still believing? Because now you have evidence that maybe it's not right. How much belief do you have in the staff and the program? You find that out when you lose, not when you win. Right. And so that's part of it too. Like you said, those late 90s teams never let go of the rope, because it would have been that 99 season, like you said, was the Penn State game you said almost won. That was a brutal loss.
Yeah, they were number 2 coming in, and we had that game.
Right. That was 4th and 2. We went for it to ice the game. And we got a bad spot. They brought the chains out, missed it by a chain link. They threw an 80-yard touchdown the next play, and we lost. I mean, that was – and then the next week after that was – I don't know if you remember the East Carolina game. We were up 20 at the half and blew it and lost.
Yeah.
That team managed to keep mentally, because from there, like you said, they went and played a strong game. Florida State was the week after that. Florida State won the championship that year. It was every opportunity to go lose by 50. So took the lead into the second half, fought them the whole way. Florida State had to make a late drive to put the game away. And you're like, all right, this team they still believe, they have guts. They're going to be fine. I remember we were ranked at 2-3 that year, because they're like, this team is actually good. And then we started winning all those games. And the only other game we lost was at Virginia Tech, who was number 2 in the country that year and played FSU for the championship game. So, that team got rocked in the beginning of the season and stuck with it. So if this team also has, it probably won't be at the beginning of the season, because if it is, this team is just bad. if they come out 2-3 out of the first 5, they're just a bad team. I don't know what to tell you, but likely, like you said, that middle of the season where you're playing all these ACC games, you're playing Clemson, you're playing Florida State, you're probably going to take some losses there. How mentally do you recover? Are you still then able to go, we're still going to handle Louisville, right? We're better than Louisville. We're still going to beat them. And that's how you progress. So that'll be a good test.
Yeah. Aaron Frazier saying, based on blue chip ratio in 2023, Miami's one of 16 teams with a 50% blue chip ratio or higher. But we should expect Miami to win 8 or more regular season games. I hear excuses. Listen, I don't know off the top of my head who those other 16 teams are, but yes, blue chip ratio is a big part of it. Having talent on your team, but also developing that talent is something that we've been, if I had to grade it, I would say F minus the last decade or so. It's been horrible. So, getting the talent here, yes, is a big part of it, but it's not the only thing. And also, you're playing two teams that are far and away better programs right now. So,
yeah, and I think also it's not you're using a percentage of blue chip. That doesn't necessarily mean like numbers. Like we're still, we had to pull a bunch of transfers in to fill in the roster here. And to your point, John, we haven't strung those classes together to really build up to the point where,
right.
I mean, the fact that we're so excited to see a bunch of freshmen play is a pretty telling story. And frankly, in particular, last year, the previous regime, I don't think the school was willing to invest at all in the coaching staff, and that's probably why Manny Diaz named himself defensive coordinator. He knew he needed to make a move there, but they wouldn't let him spend money to bring in another coach because it was the dying regime essentially. And so when you have that happening, those kids are still here and they did not get proper coaching at the beginning of their career. So, we're going to be playing catch up for a few years. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, totally agree. A couple more questions here and then we'll get you out of here. 45 minutes flew by. So Port Knox says, Big Ten. This is something that comes up a lot. I'd love to hear your thought on it. You can all keep going to Whiskey, Michigan, and Oregon in late November. You can keep all that, is what he's saying. Yeah, a lot of people bring up the whole, the weather factor, going in October and November to these cold places. And yeah, that is a factor. But like, if you remember back in the Big East, we would go to BC, we would go to Virginia Tech when it was cold. And when we were great, we kicked their ass. So it's,
yeah, I'm not worried about that. And the other thing, there's a corollary to that. You think Michigan wants to come down to like, for someone that grew up in Miami, Miami's my home, but doesn't live there anymore. Like, you don't understand what that humidity feels like when you like walk off a plane there. It punches you in the face. You think they want to do that in November when they've been like practicing in cold weather? Like there's a give and take there. We tend to focus on us having to go up north. They got to come down here too. And that's not pleasant for them. So it's a give and take on that. And frankly, if we're good, we'll go win anywhere. Like that was never, and I don't know, when everyone started following, but you mentioned we used to play Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State on the regular before we joined the Big East. And like you said, when we joined the Big East, there was a lot of Northeast schools. We'd go play in the cold weather. So this is nothing new. When we were an independent, we'd load up on those Big Ten schools. So these are all kind of teams we've played.
Yeah, and you're assuming, like, let's say you got like 3 road games that are really cold a year, roughly. You're assuming that those are going to be really good teams, like Ohio State. What if it's Rutgers? What if it's a team like that? It's not necessarily going to be Ohio State and Michigan. We might play them early in the season.
Yeah, and I think even 3 is probably a big number, right? That's probably a maximum because you're in the Big Ten. We're also not going to be the only team going there. Like, there's going to be I can't imagine North Carolina wouldn't be one of the teams there. Like, we play them today, right? Why are we assuming all of our road games are going to be in November in cold weather places? So I think there's a lot going on there.
Yeah. No, personally, I would love to renew some of those rivalries. I think it would be very fun. I've always wanted to see us play Michigan. They've kind of been like my second favorite team over the years. I have a relative who's a Michigan alum. I hate Ohio State, so I watch that game every year. So that would be a fun rivalry to have. But I think we'll end on this. Last question from Mitch. I like it because it's history related. Regardless of record and the 0-1 team, what team was the toughest, grittiest team Miami has had?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, you could go back to the beginning of our championships. That 83 team, under the radar was not that good compared to some of the teams that came out. They were not the monster the program became in the 80s. I mean, not that good is a harsh statement, but compared to, like, for example, the talent that we'd have by the end of the decade, like, they gutted a bunch of games out against teams like East Carolina and West Virginia and got blown out by Florida and just managed to get there and then beat Nebraska. And that's when I would put out there. And for a more recent one that people might better remember, that 2008 team, that was Randy Shannon's second year. You mentioned coming off of that 07 season where he went 5-7. That team almost won the ACC Coastal with a bunch of freshmen playing and just pulling games out of their butts. Like just we were switching Marv and Ja'Cory Harrison, and it was just working. And that team, if you look at the middle of that season when they went on this big winning streak, it was a lot of one possession game wins where they're just gutting it out. And then obviously the bottom fell out on that Thursday against Georgia Tech, which is what people tend to remember. But that team had no business being anywhere near the ACC championship game, and they were a game away from making it, and it was really just on guts.
Yeah, I remember the week before that Georgia Tech game, I was at the Thursday night Virginia Tech game that they won, which got them, I think it got them to like 7-3, and it got them ranked. And I just remember thinking, after starting 2-3, I remember thinking, man, this team is 7-3 ranked. We just beat a decent Virginia Tech team with a lot of veterans. And, we did it on the backs of freshmen. Ja'Cory was starting at that point. You had Brandon Harris starting, Sean Spence starting. All these guys I'm mentioning are Aldarius Johnson, LaRon Bird. All these guys are true freshmen. Yeah, I remember that very well. But yeah, they didn't have the depth and just got.
They really had no business even being competitive at that point with that many freshmen. And it was, the games weren't pretty. That's why I, got grittiest. These were not works of art that they were putting on the field. They were just finding ways to win these games.
Yeah. I would have to say, it was probably the 99 team we were talking about. 98 or 99, because at 98, we were facing Syracuse for the Big East title, where Donovan McNabb, I think, is still running to the end zone. He ran for 1 billion yards in that game and torched us. I think the final score was 66-13. I think we were ranked higher than them. We were both ranked in the 20s, and we were ranked higher. They just absolutely nuked us in that game. But we somehow bounced back with a chip on our shoulder and Edgerrin James, and we come back and beat number 3 ranked UCLA.
Right.
On the back of 299 yards by Edgerrin James, which
you wanted that extra yard though. But still,
I know. And I think if I remember correctly, he was over 300, but then he took a loss.
He took a loss.
He took like a 5-yard loss or something. He was like at 304 or something. But that's one I often go back and watch. That one's a fun one. But I would have to say 99 if I had to pick one, because like you said, you get gutted by number 2 Penn State on that last play. You get beat on in the last few minutes by FSU, top ranked on the road, lose an embarrassing one to East Carolina. Really 3 out of the 4 losses were against top 3 teams. And somehow you're able to pick yourself up and you win the last 3 or 4 games. You beat the hell out of Georgia Tech, who had Joe Hamilton at the time, who was a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, they were favored in that game.
Yeah, no one gave us a chance in that bowl game, in that Gator Bowl. Yeah, I remember everybody kind of written us off at that point and nope, we're going to come in, not just win, we're going to kick their ass, and we did. Yeah, that was where I think that's the infamous Al Blades speech that goes viral every year.
Which we probably shouldn't quote here, but
we can't quote because we'd have to bleep out every other word. But I want to say it was that game, going out to the tunnel. Either that one or Ohio State, but it was that.
Yeah, season. It was either that or Ohio State. It was definitely that year.
Yeah, but
and that was another one where there was quarterback stuff going on because Kenny Kelly was the starter. He got hurt against Virginia Tech. Dorsey came out there and frankly was not good. Looked lost. Freshman on the we actually jumped out early 10-0 on Virginia Tech in that game, and then
we were winning that game.
Yeah, and then Kenny Kelly got hurt, and Dorsey was just not ready to play.
Yeah.
In that environment. And then from there, that was probably the most important part of his career because he obviously had to play the rest of the regular season. They split time in the bowl game, but over the rest of the season, we had 3 games left. He was so good, convinced Kenny Kelly to focus on baseball, and he became the man, without that whole sequence. And without him also struggling at Virginia Tech and learning from it. Like you said, it proved his toughness, which we would benefit for the next 3 years, actually. So, that was a critical season there.
Yeah, it proved his toughness, his guts. If anybody watching wants to go back and watch an example of this, if you could find it, I think it's still on YouTube. Miami versus Syracuse, 99. It was like the second to last game of the season. Dorsey played, I think, the entire game. And even in that game, looked shaky at first, but then found his groove. And I remember thinking, this is the game Dorsey was born, basically.
Yeah, because he was the backup, and when Kenny Kelly got hurt against Virginia Tech and missed the rest of the regular season, so that's when it became Dorsey's team. Mm-hmm. Then the bowl game, Kenny Kelly actually started, but they split.
Yeah,
split snaps. That was also the year. I don't know if you remember this game. We're losing. I think it was 27-0 to Boston College, and came back and won in the fourth quarter.
Yep. To prevent a 4-game losing streak. Yeah. That was when we were 2-3.
Yeah, that's another that team just never gave up. We had a kicker back then named Andy Crossland who was not the best kicker because he was actually a punter, but this is still scholarship limits. So it was like, oh, this guy can do both. We got to have him because we used one scholarship on 2 kickers. He's the kicker and the punter.
Yeah,
but man, he hit that game-winning field goal. Screwed it right down the middle there. It was just everything was coming together. But that was one where another game Kenny Kelly got injured in and finished the game, but by the end of it couldn't even move. And I think we went for it. I'm doing this from memory, so I might be making mistakes a little bit, but tied it at 28, got the ball back. And then it was like going to be like a 50-yard field goal. So Butch Davis just goes for it on 4th and 12 or whatever. He's like, we're not going to make this field goal. And Kenny Kelly does a roll up, but he can't really move because they, after the game, found out intentionally twisted his ankle in a pile, but that's a whole other story. But so he limps out to the side, just throws like a moon ball, and Reggie Wayne like catches it on the sideline, like toeing the line, then we kick the winning field goal the next play. So that's a good one. That is on YouTube.
That one is on YouTube.
That's a good one to go look back on. That's a fun game. And you see all of these players playing that are like, that guy's going to be a first-round NFL pick, and you don't know it yet because that team still had not hit their stride. So your receivers are Santana Moss and Reggie Wayne. You got James Jackson and Portis at running back, and so you got all these guys that are like, man, these guys are going to be stars, but you don't know it yet, and it's really fun to watch them at that stage. And you can see the heart and the desire. You mentioned the grit that eventually led to them being that successful. Because it's not just talent. You mentioned the blue tip ratio. It's not just the talent. It's the attitude. It's the drive.
No, it's the mentality.
It's the coaching too. It's the development. It's all together.
Yeah, which we've been missing. And yeah, you were right about that. Us going for it. It was Reggie Wayne on the sideline. He toe tapped it, and no, that is a fun one to watch. I think it's one of Cane Freak 01's videos that he does like a 10-minute, like just the Canes highlights. Okay. They watch like a condensed version. That one he has, and then the Syracuse one of 99. That one is, I think, a full version of the game that you can find somewhere. But all right, we're almost at an hour 55 on the live chat. Yeah, no, I could talk Canes football for hours, and it feels like 10 minutes goes by. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Please go support Vish. Vish, I know you got other stuff going on. You got the Hoops show, I think, with
So we got a couple of shows. We got Six Rings Cane, which is kind of our main show that is football focused. It's myself, Jazz Santana, Dan Gillette, and of course legendary Larry Bluestein there. And then we've got our basketball show, which is Buckets, which is myself, Melissa, who you might know as Hoodie Girl, and Matt, who goes by Inside Out with a 3 in it on Twitter instead of the E. Very difficult to type. But so yeah, we're doing full year coverage of football and basketball now. And then Jazz and I do cover baseball when the season comes around. So we kind of hit all 3 of the big sports there.
Yeah. Real quick, because I'm a big Canes basketball fan. How you feeling about that Hoops team at the moment?
I feel like we could use one more big, but really excited to see how they tackle the season. I think we're just a little small there in the front court, but so many guards and wings that look out for Chris Watson. He didn't play a lot last year. He's going to get another bit more opportunity this year. He's a stud, but he wasn't going to take Zay's minutes or something. So just wasn't going to get the ball last year, but he's someone to look out for. And also AJ Casey's offensive game development. People don't remember in high school, he was a big time recruit because of his offensive game. Last year, he basically had to deputize as you're tall, go play backup center. That's not his game at all. And so he's someone to watch out for too, to give us a lot of scoring, probably at the 4 position.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm excited about AJ Casey. I want to say he was a McDonald's All-American or close to it.
Close to it. He was an elite offensive player in high school, which you would not know at all if you watched him last year, because he's just out of position and just there to really foul people.
Yeah, if he takes that step forward, that could really bolster things. But anyways, Vish, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, anytime.
Really appreciate it. Please go catch their content. Again, hit the like and subscribe button. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. Enjoy your Saturday.